If you're here, I'm assuming you've watched Target Notes 1 and you enjoyed it and you wanted to build on those initial concepts. If you haven't watched it, what are you doing here? You've missed the first bit. It's really important. So in Target Notes Part 1, we covered the root notes. And as the chord progression changed throughout the 12 bar, we resolved only to the root note of that chord. Today we're going to be adding the major third interval into the mix. And as well as being able to resolve our phrases on it, we can also pass through it as well and start mixing the root note and the major third together, and it gives us a totally different flavor. Make sure you stick around to the end as well, because I'm going to show you a cool little hack with string bending on the top 3 strings that will help you expand and hit some more of those target notes that we've been talking about. All right, let's take a look at today's solo. Let's talk about our A7 chord in a little bit more detail. It's got 4 notes in it. We've got a root note, A. We've got a major third, C sharp. We've got a perfect fifth, E. And we've got a minor 7, which is the note G. So whilst there is a major third interval in the lower octave, so if this is your A, here's the C sharp, that's the first place it occurs. We're going to be using the major third that actually appears in the chord shape, so the second octave. The major third for the D7 chord, pinky here, 7th fret of the B, the note F sharp, and then for the E7 chord, same shape, so it's going to be the pinky again, 9th fret of the B, that's the note G sharp, but we're going to be actually playing it on the 6th fret of the D, so that's the lower octave, because I wanted to keep it within the walls of A blues scale, position 1. Exactly the same as lesson 1, I'm just going to show you 3 different phrases, one for the A, one for the D, and one for the E. And if you want to dive into it further, try and work it out from the video example, or go and grab the tab over on my Patreon. So this is my favorite A lick that incorporates major third. It's pretty cool. You've got a palm muted open A to begin with. Then we hit the 5th fret of the D with the index finger, and then the 7th fret of the G with the 3rd finger. Now we're going to flick our index finger from the 5th fret of the G, which is the minor third, into that major third with the 2nd finger on the 6th fret. Then we slide from the 7th fret of the A to the 9th fret. Before landing on the root with our index finger. You should know what that is now from the previous lesson. If I just say the root in A, you should be thinking, right, 7th fret of the D string, the note A. Now, whilst this doesn't resolve on the 3rd, as I mentioned, it passes through it. And we've just introduced a different flavor, a different sound to just playing within the scale. It really emphasizes that A7 chord. Here's the D7 lick. This time we actually resolve on the major third, so it's different to the A1. So we start with our index finger on the 5th fret of the D and we hammer it down to the 7. Then we go to the 5th fret of the G and the B, and you can play them both with the index finger. Now we go up to the 8th fret of the B with the pinky before going to the 7th fret, so that's a semitone back. Okay, and that's the major third in the key of D. And I like going up to the 8th fret and then back to the 7th. I call it a little musical rug pull because you have an expectancy of where that's going, especially if you're always playing in that sort of box shape. But it doesn't. It takes you somewhere different. And that's why it's a cool lick. This is the E7 lick. So this is cool because it, again, resolves on the major third of E, but this time it's the lower octave, like I talked about before. So we start with this cool semitone bend from the 7th fret of the B, just going up to the 8th fret. And whilst it's bent, you're going to hit it again, pre-bend release, back down. Then you hit the 5 on the B, down to the 7 on the G, and then the 5. So you're just working your way down the scale. Now when you get to that 5, you're going to do that semitone hammer on again. And that's going to the major third of A. We talked about that before. Now we're going to bring our index finger to the 6th fret of the D. And that's the major third in the key of E. So you can hear that when we land on the 3rd, it has a completely different vibe. And just to back that up, I'm going to play the same D and E licks back to back, but I will resolve to the root and then the 3rd, and you can hear the difference. What I like about the major third is that it creates a different vibe, and you can remember what that feels like and how it sounds. And when you want to call upon it, you can use it. Now, I mentioned that little hack at the start of the video, didn't I? So, string bending, top 3 strings. This is really cool if you've never thought about it this way, especially within a 12 bar. If you take the front 3 notes, so the highest in pitch, the 7, the 8, and the 8, and you bend them all up a tone, you end up with 1, 4, and 5 in the key of A, which gives us great options in terms of bending up to our roots. So if we go to the 7th fret of the G, the note D, and you go up a tone, you get the note E, which is our 5 chord. If you go to the 8th fret of the B, you get the note G, you take that up a tone, you get the note A, which is our 1 chord. And if you go up to the 8th fret of the E, it's the note C, and you go up a tone, you get D, which is our 4 chord. So, in terms of playing in a 1, 4, 5, our top 3 strings, which are the most common to bend, and especially at the front of the scale, you can bend up to 1, 4, and 5, which gives you extra options in terms of finding roots. You don't just have to fret them. A good place to experiment with this is when the chord progression first moves up to the E, and then back down to the D. You can have some fun there. Release the bend, and then you've got that D right underneath your fingertips. If you've just gone straight through the first video into this one, and you've not given the root notes the time they needed to sink in, definitely be patient. You really want to take your time with the previous lesson. Make sure you know that chord progression so that you can make confident choices with the notes you want to hit at the right time. And then add the major third in from today's lesson. So remember, you can resolve on the root and third, but you can also pass through it as well. And it adds little bits of flavour here and there. You know where the tab is. It's in the same place it always is. Top right hand corner of your screen, top left corner of my screen. It's on Patreon, isn't it? But again, if you can't afford that, don't worry. You get 3 licks for free and you can work them out from the video, which is good. It's a good skill to have, being able to work stuff out. You know, I get people come to me saying, can we do this? And I go, I've never heard of it before. There's no tabs for it online. I got to work it out. And I do. I always do. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video, Target Notes 3, where we're going to add perfect fifth and the minor 7. And that would conclude the 3-part series. Take it easy. See you soon.